Hey everybody, welcome to my new video series, How I Built the Craziest Gym Ever. This series will include several episodes carefully explaining each piece of equipment I've built in my home gym. I'll be sure to cover things like a list of materials used for each machine, a basic cut list, the dimensions of each machine, and general instruction on how to assemble each piece of equipment. I'll also be adding what tools were used, how much time and cost, as well as discussing future gym equipment projects. If you enjoy this video and want to support future content, be sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below. So without further delay, let's get to this episode's project. In episode 5, I will show you how to build a multifunctional cable system from simple material you can get at your local hardware store. I've trained with this piece of equipment for 5 years now with heavy abuse, week in and week out, and it gets the job done consistently. It is the most versatile machine in my gym and by far the most requested in this series. I will say, however, that I built this machine with scrap wood I found from Home Depot, and most of the hardware I used I already had lying around the house. Therefore, some of the hardware I suggest in this build might not reflect the actual hardware I used in this machine. With that being said, here's a list of all the steps required to build this cable machine. Step 1. Gather necessary materials. I'd like to quickly point out that this cable unit is essentially two identical cable machines that are simply joined together at the top with two 2x6 boards. Therefore, this video will only include the materials used to build the individual cable machine. To build the complete unit, simply double the materials listed plus the two 2x6 boards used to join the machine together at the top. Then repeat the steps in this video. Starting with the wooden materials first, you will need the following: 4 8-foot 4x4s, 3 8-foot 2x4s, and one 8-foot 2x6 board. For the hardware, you will need 16 7-inch Simpson strong ties, 8 12-inch Simpson strong strap plates, 8 4-inch L brackets, 9 8-inch by 3/8-inch bolts and nuts, 1 metal pull handle, 8 cable pulleys. Make sure one of those pulleys is a hanging pulley like this, and one is mounted like this. 4 1/2-inch pillow blocks, 2 1 1/2-inch floor flanges, 1 3-inch eye bolt, 2 8-inch by 1 1/2-inch plumber's pipe, 16 1-inch caster wheels, 1 box of 3-inch screws, 1 box of 3.5-inch screws, 1 box of 1 1/2-inch screws, 8 2-inch lag bolts, and 27 feet of 1/8-inch pulley cable. I would suggest buying everything at your local hardware store, but you may find some of these items much cheaper on Amazon or eBay. Step 2. Tools needed. The tools needed to complete this project are 1 power drill, 1 miter saw or circular saw, and 1 adjustable wrench or appropriate socket wrench. And of course, measuring tools. Step 3. Complete cut list. Be sure to carefully measure and make the following cuts, starting with the 8-foot 4x4s first. Make 3 4x4 cuts of 74 inches, 2 4x4 cuts of 30 inches, 1 4x4 cut of 36 inches, and 1 4x4 cut of 12 inches. For the 2x4s, you will need 2 boards of 36 inches, 2 boards of 8 1/2 inches, 2 boards of 7 1/2 inches, 1 board of 67 inches, 1 board of 12 inches, and 1 2x4 board of 70 inches. For the 2x6 boards, you will need 2 boards of 36 inches, 4 boards of 10 1/2 inches, 3 boards of 7 1/2 inches, 1 board of 7 inches, and 1 board of 6 1/2 inches. Step 4. Sand each board. Be sure to go over each board with some sandpaper or an electric sander if available. Step 5. Assemble base. Start assembling the machine by building the base first. Take the two 30-inch 4x4s from the cut list and join them here using Simpson strong ties and 3-inch screws. Be sure to pre-drill and secure each side of the board. Then take the 36-inch 4x4 from the cut list and do the same thing here. The middle board should be perfectly in the center of the 2 outer boards, measuring 15 inches here and 18 inches here. Step 6. Assemble frame post. Start by grabbing the three 74-inch 4x4s from the cut list and placing the first post at the back of the base so that it's flush with the frame. Attach the post to the base using Simpson strong ties and 3-inch screws. Be sure to secure each side of the post. Next, measure 6 inches from the back post and attach the second post here using the Simpson strong ties and 3-inch screws. The last post should be placed 11 1/4 inches from the second post and 9 inches from the front of the base. As you can see, I used both corner brackets and Simpson strong ties to secure the post to the base on this machine. However, I'd suggest just using the Simpson strong ties to keep things simple and to cut down on cost. Lastly, grab the 12-inch 4x4 on the cut list and cut an appropriate angle on both sides to create a wooden angle brace. Secure the brace to the front of the first post using 3 1/2 inch screws. Before you secure the tops of each frame post, you will need to build both the weight and pulley carriages. Step 7. Build weight carriage. Now it's time to build the weight carriage for this machine. Grab two 10 1/2 inch 2x6 boards and two 7 1/2 inch 2x6 boards from the cut list. Begin by attaching 4 1-inch caster wheels to each of the 4 sides of the weight carriage using 1 1/2 inch screws. Be sure to align them in pairs and leave a 1-inch spacing in between each wheel, as if you were making 2 pairs of wooden roller skates. Once this is done, join the 4 boards together using 3 1/2 inch screws to make a perfect square box. Next, roll the weight carriage over an unused 4x4 to ensure a snug but smooth fit. Take 4 of the Simpson strong strap plates and attach 2 of them up top and 2 of them on the bottom using 3-inch screws. These plates are used to help guide the carriage up and down the 4x4 efficiently and may need to be adjusted accordingly to ensure a perfect fit. Now it's time to add the weight post to both sides of the carriage. Attach the 2 1 1/2 inch floor flanges as well as both 8-inch plumber's pipe to each side using either 1 1/2 inch screws or 2-inch carriage bolts. For the last part of this step, you will need a way to attach the cable pulley to the weight carriage. I used a basic piece of punch flat bar to achieve this task, but I would now suggest simply attaching a 10 1/2 inch 2x4 across the carriage and drilling a hole in the middle. Then bolting down an eye bolt to attach to the pulley instead. Step 8. Assemble pulley carriage. Assembling the pulley carriage is a lot like assembling the weight carriage. The pulley carriage is made of 2 10 1/2 inch 2x6 boards and 2 8 1/2 inch 2x4 boards. The first step is to take the 2 8 1/2 inch 2x4s and attach 4 caster wheels on each board using 1 1/2 inch screws. This process is done basically the same way the weight carriage is done, installing the caster wheels in pairs with a 1-inch spacing in between them. Once again, use an unused 4x4 to help assemble the carriage. Attach the 2 10 1/2 inch 2x6 boards with the 2 2x4 boards using 3-inch screws. Then install the 2 12-inch Simpson strap plates on each side of the carriage using 1 1/2 inch screws. Now it's time to drill and install 2 of the pillow blocks. In order to install the pillow blocks, you must cut out a 6 1/2 inch 2x6 and attach it to the front of the pulley carriage using 3 1/2 inch screws. Be sure to place the first set of pillow blocks as far apart on the 2x6 board as possible to leave room for the other 2 pillow blocks to fit in between. Using a socket or an adjustable wrench, screw in the 4 lag bolts until the pillow blocks are snug. Next, you must build the pulley attachment and connect it to the pulley carriage. The pulley attachment is made of 1 7 1/2 inch 2x6 and 2 2x4s. First, take the 2 2x4 boards and align them together against the 2x6 as shown. Pre-drill and join the pieces together using 3 1/2 inch screws. With a 3/8 drill bit, drill 2 holes 1 3/4 inches from the top and bottom of the 2x4 as shown. Now insert 2 cable pulleys with a 3/8 inch bolt and nut. Once this is finished, you will need to install the last 2 pillow blocks on the back of the cable attachment. Make sure you align the pillow blocks as close together as possible. Pre-drill and screw in the 2-inch lag bolts. To connect the cable attachment and the pulley carriage, simply align the pillow blocks together and insert an 8-inch by 3/8 inch bolt and nut in between them to lock the attachment and carriage together. The last part of this step is to make the carriage pin. Take the 12-inch 2x4 from the cut list and attach two 3-inch 2x4s using 3-inch screws. Then drill a hole directly in the middle of both 3-inch 2x4s and insert two of the 8-inch bolts and nuts. Finally, add the metal pull handle in the back of the 12-inch 2x4 as shown using 1 1/2 inch screws. Once the carriage pin is made, you will have to drill several holes into the 4x4 frame post so the carriage pin can hold the pulley carriage in place. Carefully mark each stopping position you would like the carriage to have and drill a hole using a large drill bit or 1/2 inch spade bit. Be sure to space the holes accordingly and leave enough circumference for the pins to slide through. Once this is done, slide the carriage up and down and test each stopping point until you are satisfied with the result. Step 9. Build pulley tower. Now it's time to build the pulley tower. The pulley tower is made up of the two 36-inch 2x4s and two 36-inch 2x6 boards from the cut list. Start by carefully marking the spot of each of the 4 pulleys on the pulley tower. Pulley 1 should be placed about 1 1/2 inches down and 1 1/2 inches from the end of the board. Pulley 2 is also 1 1/2 inches down and 5 1/2 inches from the opposite end. Pulley 3 is about 2 3/4 inches down and 7 1/2 inches from the edge. Pulley 4 is 2 3/4 inches down and exactly 18 inches from either edge. Once the positions are marked, drill a hole and insert the cable pulleys using an 8-inch by 3/8 inch carriage bolt and nut. With the pulleys now in place, go ahead and place the pulley tower over the 3 frame posts. Take the 7-inch 2x6 board from the cut list and attach it to the end of the pulley tower using 3 1/2 inch screws. Now connect the pulley tower to each individual frame post using the 4-inch L brackets and 3-inch screws. Once the pulley tower is in place, take the 67-inch 2x4 and the 70-inch 2x4 and attach them to the back of the base and frame post using 3 1/2 inch screws. Be sure to cut an appropriate angle. This will strengthen the frame and provide stability to the machine. Step 10. Install pulley cable. The last step for this project is to install the pulley cable and remaining pulleys that allow this machine to function properly. Take the 27-foot pulley cable and crimp one end using a cable sleeve and crimping tool. Then begin by feeding the cable through pulley 1 on the pulley attachment. Proceed up until you reach pulley 2 on the pulley tower. The cable should continue to travel through pulley 2 and back until it reaches pulley 3. Feed the cable down and through pulley 4, which should be the hanging pulley that supports the weight carriage. Continue back upward through pulley 5 and over to pulley 6. Before you proceed, you will need to install the last pulley onto the base of the machine. Grab the mounting pulley and attach it to the base of the machine, approximately 3 inches from the first frame post using 3 1/2 inch screws. Once this is finished, you may now continue feeding the cable down from pulley 6 and around the bottom of mounted pulley 7. The final step in this process is to install the 3-inch eye bolt to the bottom of the pulley carriage. Finally, finish the job by crimping the end of the cable with a crimp sleeve and connecting the cable to the eye bolt using a heavy-duty carabiner clip. Now for the cost. As I've mentioned before, this machine was built using scrap wood and some random universal hardware I already had. If you bought everything brand new, the estimated cost of this machine would be around $175 for the single unit and about $350 for the entire cable system. The estimated labor time to build this machine would be 4 to 5 hours for the single unit and 8 to 10 hours for the entire system. My advice when building a more complicated piece of equipment like this is to take your time and to make the necessary micro adjustments that are needed to make this machine function properly. It took several mistakes and do-overs until I was finally able to figure out exactly how to make this equipment work using basic logic and common sense. You have now completed your multifunctional cable machine. Be sure to tune in as we continue the series, How I Built the Craziest Gym Ever.